We're starting off 2022 the same way we start off every new year, with a case review. This is the CK560 from DeepCool, and it continues their evolution towards airflow-focused enclosures. It brought over and improved upon many of the signature DeepCool features from their budget-friendly case lines, but are the features and performance worth the slightly higher MSRP? We're going to put that to the test. Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome to Elevated Systems. I'm your host CJ. Over the years, I've used different DeepCool products in various PC builds. Their Game Max air coolers have been solid options for lower budget builds, and their Castle series AIOs have been pretty good bang for your buck cooling options. However, in the case department, DeepCool has typically run counter to their name with boxy, closed-off cases like the Matrix and the Cube lines, but recently they started to be more focused on high airflow with the CL500 and CG560 cases, and this CK560 is the next generation of case and continues to focus on airflow and cooling. So today we'll overview all the specs and features of the case, then I'll build out a complete system in the enclosure. I'll share all the build notes and pros and cons of the case, test the thermal performance, and ultimately figure out if it's worth the $100 MSRP. This is a mid-tower ATX case measuring in at 18.5 inches tall by 9 inches wide by 18 inches deep. It holds ATX, micro ATX, mini ITX motherboards, and eATX motherboards up to 330 millimeters wide. It supports graphic cards up to 380 millimeters and CPU coolers up to 175 millimeters. It comes with 3 DeepCool 120 millimeter RGB front fans and a 140 millimeter rear fan pre-installed, and the case can support up to 2 140 millimeter or 3 120 millimeter fans in the front and 2 140 millimeter or 2 120 millimeter fans on the top. All of the fans are behind easily removable nylon filters. Additionally, the case supports a 240 millimeter or 280 millimeter radiator at the top and up to a 360 or 280 millimeter at the front. Storage-wise, there is an included drive cage to hold 2 3.5-inch hard drives or 2 2.5-inch SSDs, as well as 2 mounting locations for 2.5-inch SSDs. The drive cage is easily removable with a single captive thumb screw and has 2 mounting positions, allowing for a max power supply length of 160 millimeters. The front I/O includes 2 USB 10 gigabit per second Type A ports and 1 USB 20 gigabit per second Type C port. There's a combo 3.5 millimeter headphone and microphone jack, and your power button, as well as an RGB lighting mode button that's connected to the included RGB controller hub. Finally, the case includes a fully adjustable 2-position GPU support bracket. So that's a quick overview of some of the key features of this case, but like I always say, to really get to know an enclosure, you need to build in it. So that's what we're gonna do. And to keep this review process in line with current market conditions, I'm not gonna be putting in the latest and greatest components in this brand new case because, well, just like most of you, I can't get my hands on new components, especially graphics cards, at reasonable prices. So instead, I'll be using these older but still very capable components for the build, basically just upgrading a slightly older system into a new case. This is a pretty common practice. In fact, I just helped a buddy move his gaming system he's been slowly upgrading from a pretty closed off and acrylic hotbox type case into a good airflow case. But of course, the most important thing here is assessing the build experience in the DeepCool CK560, so let's get to it. To remove the side panel, simply loosen the captive thumb screws on the rear of the case and slide the panel to the rear. Besides the thumb screws, the rear panel is only secured in place by a lip on the front of the panel that slides behind the front of the chassis. There are no additional attachment points at the top or bottom of the panel. We'll see how this affects the fitment once we've added a bunch of cables behind the panel, because with just the front panel I/O cables, there's already some slight fitment issues. The glass panel is secured the same way, but does include 2 tabs on the bottom of the panel that slide into slots in the case. This helps prevent dropping the panel during removing it. If you need to gain access to the front fans, the front steel panel is simply held in place with 2 magnets at the top. The fine mesh filter is also very easily removed. Speaking of the fans, the 3 front fans are 3-pin 12-volt DC fans, and the 3-pin fan connectors can be daisy-chained together and plugged into the motherboard with a single 3-pin connector. The RGB cables for the fans are separate and also daisy-chained either to the installed SATA-powered RGB hub or can be directly connected to the motherboard RGB header using the included adapter cable. There was no problems dropping in and securing the motherboard or the 240mm AIO at the top of the case. There is plenty of clearance between the bottom of the AIO fans and the memory DIMMs, therefore you shouldn't have limitations on RAM height while using a top-mounted AIO. There was also over 27mm of space between the AIO and the VRM heatsink, so you should be okay with a VRM height of up to about 50mm with a 240 AIO, or about 30mm if using a 280mm rad. One of the only issues I ran into was the cable cutouts on the bottom of the case were a bit small, making it difficult to get some of the cables through. I recommend routing the cables before installing the motherboard. The other issue was because there's no separate PSU bracket allowing the power supply to be installed from the rear of the case, it needs to be slid in from the side, and the cables, which do need to be routed prior to installing the PSU, made getting in the power supply a tight fit. So tight, in fact, one of the rubber cushion pads on the bottom of the case peeled off. The PCIe expansion covers are secured with case screws, not thumb screws, which I actually prefer, and the covers are not the breakout type, so can be reinstalled. I had no issues mounting the graphics card, and although not really needed, the support bracket installed in the rearmost position did allow me to get the card perfectly level. The only issue I foresee with this bracket, if in this position with a thicker card, it may interfere with some motherboard ports like the SATA ports on this Asus board. Another very nice update is the SSD mounting system that involves screwing 4 pegs to the SSD and simply pushing it into the rubber grommets. This is very easy and does provide a solid mount. Another very nice feature of the case is the type of rubber grommets used, as they are seemingly impossible to pop out while pushing cables through, like always seems to happen to me when routing the ATX cable. Cable management was very simple. I did move the drive cage to the forward position to provide a bit more room for the longer cables this ROG Strix PSU uses. There's over 2 centimeters of space behind the panel, and there are several well-positioned tie-down locations, many of which I took advantage of using the included zip ties. It only took me about 10 minutes to adequately manage the cables, allowing the rear panel to slide on unimpeded. However, despite there not being any cables or wires bulging out and impacting the panel, it still protruded out very slightly under its own weight, simply due to the way it's secured, like I mentioned earlier. And finally, it's time to replace the TG panel and the most important part. And finished. Now, full transparency, when DeepCool reached out and asked if I was interested in reviewing their new case, I almost passed because, with maybe the exception of the CL500, I've never really been excited about DeepCool cases, but after seeing this and building in it, I'm glad I agreed to check it out. I enjoyed working with the case, and while it's not perfect, nothing about it frustrated me. So I guess I'll just talk about the pros and cons, and I'll start with the design and build quality. PC cases tend to be rectangular boxes because, well, PC components are rectangular shaped. So anytime a case manufacturer can add curves, it's a good thing. And the rounded front edges and rounded front panel is a subtle but nice design choice. I also really like the Swiss cross pattern stamped into the panel. It gives it a higher end look, I think. It's similar to the pattern they used on the CG560, but more evolved. Build quality is what I would call typical of a case at this price point. It's essentially all powder-coated stamped sheet metal without any immediately noticeable defects in the finish. The amount of room in here is also impressive. The full ATX system has plenty of space, and again, you can see the mounting points all the way out here for massive motherboards if you want. This will of course cover the grommeted pass-throughs, but there is space to route cables on the top and the bottom front. The only thing I'd change is again adding some extra securing points to the top and bottom edges of the side panel, widening the shroud pass-throughs, and adding a PSU bracket so the power supply can be inserted through the rear of the case. And one other thing I noticed are the slits in the front panel, which are between the fans and the filter, so are essentially just dust inlets. It kind of negates the entire purpose of having a filter there in the first place. Other strong points are the inclusion of 4 fans, especially having a 140mm fan at the rear is nice. Again, I love the fixed rubber grommets, and while the GPU support bracket has been pretty standard on DeepCool cases for a while now, this one has been improved, having 2 mounting positions as well as a foam padding added. Plenty of room for cable management. Overall, a very nice case to build in, and the thermal performance was great. Idle temps for both the CPU and GPU were within 2 degrees of the system on an open air test bench, and there was no difference in idle temps with or without the front panel installed. You can see here that removing the front panel while the system is under load only increases the airflow by about a half a meter per second, and removing the mesh filter has no effect. So despite being mostly steel, the Swiss cross pattern does provide good airflow to the interior. Under a full ATA64 system stability test stressing both the CPU and the GPU simultaneously, the open air system averaged 39.6 degrees Celsius above ambient on the CPU and 50.2 Celsius delta T on the GPU. The complete case only added 2.8 degrees to the CPU and less than a degree to the GPU, while removing the front panel increased the temps by mere fractions over the test bench. The only other con I can think of is the RGB selection modes. There doesn't seem to be a static color option. The closest I could get was a breathing pattern, so I just plugged everything into the motherboard, but I refuse to install any motherboard RGB software. It's all horrible, so everything's just at the default rainbow puke for the glamour shots. Finally, is the case worth the cost? Well, its predecessor, the CG560, cost $89.99, I think. The CK560 has an MSRP of $99.99 for the black version, while the white version is $5 more, and this is a proper upgrade over the previous model. Consider the current increased cost of materials, labor, logistics, and tariff fees. I think a $10 price increase is more than fair for the DeepCool CK560, and it's a good choice for a new, lower budget to mid-tier PC build, allowing you to save a few bucks on the case to apply elsewhere without sacrificing too much in the way of design, features, and airflow. It's also an excellent option if you're just looking to give your older PC a new look. The CG560 launches today, as in today, the day I post this video, and hopefully it did. If so, there should be links to it in the description below. If not, just give it a day or two. Worldwide logistics delays are a real thing right now, affecting practically every company, and it's taking a lot longer than normal to get products from the factories to the local distributors and vendors. Case in point, DeepCool has just launched gaming peripherals like this MG510 mouse, as well as a new gaming keyboard. However, due to those logistical issues, I haven't received the keyboard yet, so stay tuned and be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss my review of those products. If you have any questions, be sure to ask in the comments below. While you're down there, it'd be great if you hit that like, and again, consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe.